How are we doing,
Hello,
buddy?
everybody.
Hey
How are
guys.
we?
Everyone
Doing good.
doing good? Enjoying the week so far? In the festive mood, you got your holiday music playing?
Not
Got the
yet.
Christmas tree up now.
There you go.
I got to tell you, it's time to get started on shopping pretty quickly here.
Chopping wood.
Amazon.com. You'll be
I
done
mean,
by.
I'm typically behind, but yeah,
Um,
it's happening. Like, thankfully, we have this on Wednesday just to let me know what day of the week it is
exactly.
and catch up. Like, that's how it's been lately.
Welcome. We are the Reboot. We, as David said, we meet Wednesdays, 1:30 Eastern time. Bunch of group of small business owners that talk about different business topics from marketing, sales, accounting. We have a pretty detailed focus on IT and security because that's the nature of our businesses. This week, we're going to talk about working securely while traveling. Before we get into that, I am Brian Bratchy with B&L PC Solutions. I am based out of Hauppauge, New York.
And I am Dave Groot with WinStar Technologies. We're based out of Culpeper, Virginia.
I'm David Luft with LDD Consulting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And Brandon Bowers, Eisenramper Managed Technology Services, and I am currently in sunny South Florida, as you can see in my window behind me.
Yes, you are.
Is it sunny though, or are you being sarcastic?
No, it is sunny. Yeah, it looks
Okay, it's
nice
hard to
outside.
tell. It's hard to tell. Okay.
It's a little film on the window, blocking
Oh,
some
that's the
UVs,
problem. Okay.
but
All right.
yeah,
Little tint
That's
there,
because
yeah.
you're in Florida, right? You got to have film on the windows or you melt.
Exactly.
oh, for sure.
I get it. Yeah.
All right, so we're sort of back to some normalcy here with travel, whether it be personal, business. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today is do you know how secure you are, and if in fact you are at all? If you're using airplane Wi-Fi, hotel Wi-Fi, are you taking any precautions? Are you following the same practices on your personal device and your work device? So obviously there's a lot of questions and things to talk about, and we can just get right into it. And we could start with the top one I said, the airplane Wi-Fi, right? I mean, that's something that everyone does and assumes that. I mean, I know the overall assumption. If you were to take a poll on people, yeah, it's secure. It's on an airplane, like. But the reality is that's a public network, right, guys? I mean, it's just open.
Even
Yep.
if it's a password kind of joined, encrypted sort of network, it's still, a very public network. I don't feel like, we all know even when there's a key involved, that's great. That's what we were looking for. We shouldn't join the open text unencrypted networks. But
Key meaning there's a password for
like
those
a WEP,
who are not.
or a WPA
Right,
key,
right.
to join the Wi-Fi, and
Yeah,
that can be
yeah.
handled in several different approaches. I think, like, the airlines might do it through their app or something along those lines. But generally, that's
Yeah, I mean, airline is typically just like a hotel, right? It's going to redirect you to a page. You need to
yeah,
accept some
right,
terms or maybe pay something, and then you're
correct.
sort of
Yeah,
rocking and
and it
rolling.
is indeed a public
Yeah,
network, and it is indeed not isolating each and every session, right? Which
yeah. And actually, that's what I was going to say. What people should be aware of: anytime you're working anywhere that's not a network managed by, your IT staff in some way, there should be considerations to make when you're working on business type of things. And some of that is policy driven, right? Depending on the business and maybe your required things. And I think it goes the same with when you're on the airline Wi-Fi. Whatever those policies are, you should probably be following. And unfortunately, some things just don't work on airplane Wi-Fi, right?
Right.
So you might have to just say, hey, I can't do this work, or make sure you have the files downloaded, onto your computer, or, just like prepare for not being able to be fully accessible while you're on that.
The other thing that's a potential issue is when you say automatically connect to this network, and that's okay while you're on the plane or the hotel, but when you go somewhere else to a coffee shop and somebody has a network that they're scamming you with that's similar to that, you're going to connect automatically to that. So you don't want to do that.
That's actually a pretty good point that people should be aware of, or just a little tip. I mean,
So you've been scamming people, David?
that's my pineapple. That's what that does. Is it get it? I mean, we need to explain to people what all this. We're talking very technical right now, and I don't know that everybody's going to understand what we're saying. And I'm not being chastising or whatever. But
Right.
I'm just saying, I think we need to maybe get a little more,
Well,
just
backtrack to that for a second. It's as simple as when you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi, don't check the box to save the connection.
Right.
That way, the next time you're going to get prompted to connect again. And the reason for that is because what David Groot just pulled up, or any other device out there technically that can kind of be hacked,
Mhm.
way to do this is somebody could just put up another wireless, and they know Starbucks or ATT Wi-Fi or
Mhm.
Xfinity or whatever your airport, pseudonym name is there in the location. They just put up another, wireless device with the same ID. And if your device is automatically set to connect to that, it'll just retry the connection, right? And
Mhm.
Right. So that's what the danger is, right? When you
right.
say go ahead and join automatically, it remembers the name of that network. And then when it sees it, it trusts it and it automatically joins it. And you can be uh, like, I've done this where I'm in a room with a secure Wi Fi and I'm cloning it. And because you're closer to me, your device is connecting to my device instead of theirs
Mhm.
in the same room, right?
Mhm.
And I'm now getting your traffic before it goes out the door.
Mhm.
And it's very, very, very easy to do
And that can happen on the airplane
anywhere.
Yeah.
But the
even, which is
airplane's the
why
least of your worries. I think it's
policies.
more about the airport or the
Yeah.
hotel or
Right.
But yeah.
So what do you do? How would you handle? I know some of the issues that we've seen is when they go to a hotel, they are diligent enough, well, not diligent enough. Maybe they can't work without connecting to a VPN to connect to company resources,
Mhm.
and blocked by the hotel.
What the VPN is?
Mhm.
I haven't
You mean
run
through
into
their
that.
Wi-Fi?
Yeah, we've seen that quite
Yeah,
a few times.
I found places where that
Not as much
is.
now, maybe, but it's definitely
Yeah.
something that is a pain point. So,
I think what they would block in the past a lot was the IPsec port
IPsec, yeah.
1723 type VPNs, right? But now we're doing a lot of SSL, which is going over port 443, and everybody's opened up on that because if you don't, the web stops working.
But a good workaround, which is I feel like is more secure than even using these public Wi-Fi's, is turn your phone into a hotspot. Make sure you're joining
Yeah.
to your phone or
Yep.
having a hotspot device with you, because you're the only person
That's
connected
exactly
to that
where I was
device.
going. Exactly. I think all the phones now, even I don't know about droids, but you can do that with a droid, right, David?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm. And that is, that's a good point, right? Because not only VPN connectivity can be blocked, but also things like we've seen with our clients, we use Duo for they have to MFA to log in to Windows. And there is an offline mode, but if they have not configured that offline mode,
Yep.
they can't log into Windows because they can't join the internet prior to doing so because they're in a
Mhm.
hotel that requires a web page to authenticate and all that fun stuff. And so, yeah, that can become quite a problem. And that's where tethering to your phone saves your life, right? Because
Hmm.
you can at least join long enough to get that part straight and then get on the hotel. But I would even say then, highly, if you're not tethering, make sure there's some form of always on VPN coming from your company on that device that's going to protect you.
Right. Agreed. And that's to Brandon's point, having that personal device,
Mhm.
your hotspot, you're controlling who has access to it. So
That's right.
you're off that public Wi-Fi, that shared Wi-Fi, that shared connection. You're on your own device, and you should be the only one connected to that. So
And oftentimes you're going to get better connectivity than the hotel's giving you anyway. So you win
absolutely,
every side or all the way around, right? It's just a
absolutely.
better method all the way.
Yep.
So
Agreed. Welcome, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Sorry about that. My
No worries.
camera didn't want to function properly. You know how
There
those
was
things
David
go.
left a couple of weeks ago. This
yeah,
is, it happens. We're just getting into, we're talking about airplane Wi-Fi and hotel Wi-Fi, and how to kind of ensure the safety of the devices, the users, and any type of protection that we could do. What else we want to talk about? I would say, obviously, working securely while traveling. This may be a little advanced for some people, but the recommendation is ensure your laptop is using some sort of encryption. Have the device encrypted and protected. And the same for your personal device too. I like to say that these things are not just on the business side. All my
Yeah.
personal stuff is encrypted.
That was actually the next top of mind item for me.
Okay.
Although you don't have to do anything once it's set up, which is a good thing, right? Um, and it's included with most versions of Windows and Mac nowadays. Like there's not an expense to it. It's just something that has to be turned on. Then at least in the event that there is a theft or you forget your laptop in the airport or, God knows whatever happens, mobile devices, all iPhones now are encrypted by default. And then what about on Android? By default, it's on, right? Unless you
Hmm.
manually turn it off. So
I'm not even aware of. I mean, I have never tried to turn it off. So, but I suppose you probably could. I don't know. I never looked. It is on by default. Like, I mean, that just goes without saying.
So for Windows laptops, BitLocker is a free one out there. People can talk to people about to help get set up. On Mac, what is it called? I forget. Is it FileVault? Or,
so it works a little differently on mobile devices than it does on like a laptop in the way that the safeguards of a mobile device oftentimes are set where the device is encrypted. So if you remove any of the storage cards or any of that kind of thing, you're not able to put it into another device and read that. That's the equivalent to what you see in a laptop as well, right? When the laptop is offline, I cannot take that hard drive, put it into another device as a slave drive, and then read it. But with a mobile device on top of that, it's if they fail to authenticate, it then wipes the whole thing clean, which is
that's an
above and
added
beyond
policy.
the encryption.
Right.
Right. That's a policy that goes.
That
there.
is an added policy that could be done, and similar can be done with laptops too.
Sure.
I fail to see many companies actually institute some of those policies though, because the instance I've actually seen it happen where they set this policy, the owner's like grandson or something was over at the house and was playing with the phone, and then the phone wiped, and they didn't have a great backup procedure for the mobile devices specifically, and so some data was lost. So that's definitely an implication potentially that you got to think about before you institute some policies like that.
So the way we work,
Android is nice in the way that it lets us create the two profiles on the phone, right? Like iPhone doesn't do it as well. It kind of sort of does, but the Android, literally, I have a work profile and a personal profile, and the two, they're running simultaneously parallel next to each other, but they're both isolated from each other and sandboxed, and I can only load apps and run apps under work that are sanctioned by the organization, and I can't take data and cross over. Now,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
do that
can
with the
set it up
iPhones too. We do that.
Yeah, it's
Like
just
I can't take anything. I can't copy something from an email on my phone. If I go to copy it, I go to
correct.
paste it into a text. It says your organization's data
Yeah,
cannot be pasted
exactly.
here.
Yeah,
So
that's the beauty of having, but that's more of an administrative kind of
it
control,
is.
right?
It is.
That's not a user. Make sure you're doing this when you're traveling control. That should
Agreed.
already be in play.
Agreed.
but if you correct me if I'm wrong, David, but on our systems, when you do separate your phone that way, if you're running the mobile device management on the business side, you're only deleting the business data in that case. So the person isn't going to lose their entire phone. As Brandon mentioned, because nobody wants that to happen. I mean, I don't know what I'd do if that ever happened to me, but
yeah, right. That's all the pictures and stuff, right? Like that we never synced. Yeah, I mean, no, you're right, and that is indeed, both the benefit from that administrative control, but it's the result, right? Is that we can selectively wipe, is what we're calling that, right? We just take off what's ours.
Yeah.
And that way, that's a big problem in organizations where they're allowing the user to use their own device. Right? Corporation doesn't own that device, so they don't control the device, but they're accessing corporate resources with the device. So it's an agreement in the middle, right?
Yep.
I think something else that people can start considering. So VPNs have been out here forever now, and I would argue that a lot of the zero trust talk is either a VPN or some other application that's doing other features of other software that's been around for a long time. Zero trust is like a very open
Zero trust
terminology
is by
right now.
no means new in terms of concept. The
But
coined term is somewhat new, but new in the last decade.
But it's the buzzword right now. Just like
Sure.
next gen AV, I feel like a couple of years ago everybody was talking about, and like it's always cycling. But some of the zero trust providers out there, like Cloudflare, I know Zscaler's one, Perimeter 91, Total. There's a whole bunch out there that do VPN-ish type of connectivity, connecting you to the office, making it more seamless versus a VPN, work really well in a remote scenario like this because it's an automatic connection.
That's
Securing,
SASE is what you're talking about.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's both because they do a lot of that. They're doing DNS filtering. They're doing that. They're doing device hygiene compliance as well, validating. Hey,
Network
as
access control, network
e-
policy, like all right.
exactly. So I think that's a real good consideration for anybody because even again, going back to, I mentioned Cloudflare, they've got very low cost options for smaller businesses, even free up to a certain number of employees that you can start leveraging this type of technology. And it works amazing for travel protection.
I almost hate to say it, recording and in public and everything else, but I'm gonna anyway because we're starting to move in the direction. Let me just put it that way, of the perimeter firewall being not as important, right? Meaning, if you're setting all these things up that we're talking about, the SASE, the VPNs, all, and you're basically setting up all of your staff, all of your endpoints are acting as though they're traveling 100% of the time, right? Even if they're in the building, and it doesn't matter because when we get to zero trust, that's what we need is individual sandboxes that we can tighten up and say least privilege. This guy can get to this guy can't, and all that fun stuff comes in the back. But that's where that's coming from, right?
Well, you get some cluster there, like you still need that segregation for IoT devices, which we all know are going in all over the place. Certainly, we're moving towards that endpoint solution, but I would add on to that. VPNs are great, but we've all seen, I think, every vendor for VPN have some sort of issue in the last 12 months for sure.
Definitely.
And so the one up to that is, do we have a service in place or do we have something in place where we're monitoring logs, even if it's with AI? Because that tunneling the data is great, but when we run a penetration test and we're able to move encrypted packets because we're not inspecting them, that doesn't do very much good either. So, that extra step is fundamental, especially for critical business machines, maybe not for everyone in their use case. But that's super important to me, is that the logs are actually getting looked at some point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the added benefits of the technology approach of SASE or whatever else you might want to call it, is that you're able to segment it to that level, right? But I mean, I can say as far as traveling and being secure when it comes to that kind of thing, for me, like, we're SASE set up, right? And my computer acts as though it's always in the office, regardless of where it's sitting. So I can be at a conference tethered to my mobile phone or potentially on the hotel Wi-Fi, and I can print to a printer in my office, or I can go to a network share or hit a NAS or do any of those kinds of things natively with nothing. It's just turn the computer on and off you go kind of stuff. Are you killing me? Are you laughing at me, Brandon?
No, I'm laughing at somebody messaging me.
Okay.
What's your outlook on the phone thing, David? Because that's what I do, that an awful lot tethered to my phone, much before I would use a public
I think it's the best way to go right now, as far as security goes. Right? If you want to work secure, tether.
Right.
I want to mention one other thing that's not technology. Well, I guess it's semi-technology related, but I remember reading. I can't remember the name of the book. It took forever to get through. It was like cyber crimes or something. It was big in mid 2015 or so. In any case, so
you're not talking about the Adam Pittman movie, are you?
No.
Okay. All right.
So one of the cases that I think it was reports around the FBI were putting together was that how people are getting targeted when they post information before they go on trips on social media, because all that data a lot of times is publicly facing. And so what attackers will do is it's opportunistic, right? They say, okay, well, this person's going to be in a place where they might not be fully accessible or available. And then different things will happen. Maybe it's a break-in, if that's the type of attack somebody's doing. But if it's a cyber attack, hey, based on this person not being available, what can we do in terms of trying to conduct some type of fraud with their family members, telling them that, hey, this person is held hostage, all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, this person's buying a new house, or this person's having a baby, or like, I mean, all of those things.
Yes.
You know, right. So, that's not
But if they
working
know you're not
securely,
going to
but
be
it's making
available
sure
for
you're
a week,
sharing your information with your intended audience, right?
Right.
be
Like,
very
that's what you
careful
do.
with who you're sharing information
That's
with.
right.
For sure. So set up those privacy restrictions and also make sure that you're not sharing that information perhaps before you're going, or too much information would be my recommendation.
Yeah. We have for some clients, it's along the lines of what we talked about earlier, mobile device management, but for the it's working securely while traveling, which is the topic, but the purpose of the software is if the device is ever lost or stolen. I mean, we have controls in place for MDM, but we use a product called Prey, Prey, and what that does is we can actually um, at any given moment locate exactly where that device is. And so if the device is turned off, as soon as it's turned on, we can have it turn the camera on, take a picture of who's at that computer. We can lock the device. We can set alarms off. We can, so we have full control of that. So we don't care. I mean, if which happens, happened last week. Someone's laptop got stolen. We just
You
executed
almost have fun with
again.
that, don't you? It's almost like,
It's
okay, great, cool. Somebody got their laptop stolen. We get to go and do Prey.
the fun part of it is the testing of it, and watching and seeing real time how it reacts to our commands. It's great. So another layer. So on the corporate side, that's something that we push out for these reasons.
Well, so working securely, if I might, just to kind of make sure I throw a few tips out there. This is just Dave's opinion. Like, if you're going to do work,
So take it with a grain of salt.
yes, it's an opinion. I'll give you that. But look, if you're going to do corporate kind of things or work, then do it on a work device, right?
Yeah.
If you got an iPad and you want to watch a movie, that's great. Join the Wi-Fi, watch the iPad, do the movie, have a good time. If that's your corporate iPad, then I don't know that I would say that that's all great. But seriously, just be intelligent about it. And I'm not being smart or sarcastic. I'm not. You have to nowadays. We got to make choices, right? We have to make decisions consciously. We have to say, hey, am I going to need Wi-Fi on the airplane to do work? Is there a way I can get around it? Because frankly, if you cannot join it, you're better off, right? If you have to, okay, fine. Those are just know what you're doing and what's at stake when you're doing it. So if you're okay with losing all the pictures on your mobile phone, join it to the airplane Wi-Fi. If you're not okay losing all the pictures on your phone, consider not doing that. Like
Right.
that, and I'm not, don't think that it's the airline's responsibility to protect you. They could care less what's going to happen on that. And I guarantee you, when you click I accept, you're saying 16 different times that you understand that, right? So when you're in a hotel and you join the Wi-Fi and you get on and they have why do you think they have that? They're telling you you're on a public network. We cannot guarantee. So pay attention to that. And that's just as a general rule. That's not me lecturing. It's just the best piece of advice I can give anybody is to be aware of your surroundings and choose those resources wisely.
And to tack onto that for a second, in those cases where you have to get on that system, think about what it is that you're actually doing if you can't have additional protections in place. So things like, maybe I don't want to log into my bank while I'm on this and not on Wi-Fi and having these other protections in place.
The
Maybe I don't
problem
want
with
to
that, Brandon, is that's a false sense of security, though, because if they have logged onto their bank on that device in the past, then I might still be putting myself at risk, right? Like, so yeah, you're right. Lessen the activity. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I do that all the time. My wife keeps yelling at me about it, but and I don't mean to do that. That's a great piece of advice, but take that with a grain of salt, right? Like,
again, yes, if someone gets onto your machine, somehow gets access to your machine because your machine was on the network and there's other vulnerabilities in place. But let's just say, with that not being the case, just be smart about it. Like you were saying, try and take as many precautions. Like, don't make it easy for them. If you're in a place where you're on public Wi-Fi and there's a chance that Wi-Fi is not protected and it's a shared environment, like, don't do things like that. Just keep yourself as
Limit
safe
it,
as
right?
possible.
Get
Yeah.
on, get off, right? Turn
Yeah.
it off.
We know
turn it
what
on.
to put in place. I met with a prospect last week that I was reviewing their 365 tenant, and they don't have multi-factor. She's like, "Oh no, I hate that." I said, "Well, you're going to hate being breached more than you hate having to approve something, and not understanding
Very
what's
much.
involved." I mean, I would like to say that all of our clients are, as secure as they will let us secure them. There's got to be some onus there, and explaining to somebody that just has this preconceived thought about MFA, and that I don't want to do this every time I log in. I'm like, you don't. Like, we set it up, you do it once. The only time you'll need that again is if you're logging in again from somewhere else. I said, that's it. You use your computer every day, and again, I'm talking specific to Microsoft, but it's like so again, it's consistently educating people, putting the messaging out there, and so we understand the grievances that people have, but we have to also stand by what we believe and what we want to push out to people, because again, people are traveling again. We need to make sure that the way that they're accessing their data is the most secure way that we can allow.
So if I'll throw one out there that's probably more analog, and if you want to say I'm more strict than Dave after this, that's fine too. But I always tell clients, everyone actually, never plug your phone in to charge in one of the airports or in the hotel USB. And I think that gets overlooked quite a bit, because I don't think people realize how easy it is to steal your data if you're allowing data connection through that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to clarify that a little bit further, you can
to borrow a
simply
cable,
protect yourself
by
by just having a power adapter with you.
brick,
So if you
yep.
use the power and plug it into the wall with your USB cable, hey, everything's fine. But
Yep.
by plugging the USB in and potentially getting that pop-up that says, hey, do you want to allow this to have access? Somebody could have tampered with that USB very easily to what Paul was alluding to. And then all of a sudden now, like, they can get access to everything that's on your phone.
And the other thing
That's actually a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think about that too often.
They actually sell now chargers without data connection capability, so you won't even get the pop-up for it, because
it's a different cable altogether, right?
It's a different cable. It just doesn't have any capability for data connection, but it'll charge your phone. So if you want to be, extra safe, but definitely don't ever borrow somebody's charging cable in an airport. Don't plug into those little posts, because there's a lot of traffic there. I look at it the same as skimming a credit card machine at a gas station, right?
Sure.
Like that's high volume traffic. And if you're a hacker and you're going to put out, 5 or 6 of those in an airport, you're probably going to get a really good return.
Same with an ATM, right? They put those things over the ATM. As soon as your card goes in, they scan it, and sometimes they even mess with the camera so they can see as you're typing in your code, just like at the gas stations.
Yeah, gas stations too. That's what I was going to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we in 28 minutes. Yeah. Let's. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I mean, just again, diligence, and just question what you're doing, and do you need to do it?
Yeah, I think this stuff is simple, and just make sure you're aware of things and you're careful. It's nothing we talked about today, other than some of the specific terminology David was mentioning was a little tech. I was trying to make it a little easier, but yeah, I mean, be aware of your surroundings. I feel like is just be careful what you're doing where you're at.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week, 1:30 Eastern, and we'll have another engaging topic to talk about. Take care,
See you
everybody.
guys.
See ya.